The town of Plainville. Established in 1721 at the geographical center of Connecticut.
We'll begin the work session. Today is Tuesday, March 13th at 6:45 p.m. Our first department that we're going to be reviewing is senior citizens. Robert, would you like to give us an overview? And hi, Sean. How are you?
Oh, how are you? Hi, Sean.
Yes, the senior citizen services proposed budget, recommended budget is on page F8 through F13. I'm going to read from F13. The recommended budget totals $312,873, which is an increase of $11,161 or 3.7%. You'll see where the full-time salary is increasing by 1.5%, which is what I'm recommending be the increase for full-time non-union people for next year. The part-time salary increase of $9,035. You may recall that we're in the second year, or at least partially second year, because it didn't start on July 1st, of a grant program where we added a financial office assistant. We received a grant that paid 100% in the first year, 50% in the second year, and 0% in the third year. And this is calculated through a partial portion of the year, because it actually the annual date is in March. That adds to this the $9,035. $7,208 is our second year, the amount we pick up, the commitment that we made when we had the grant. So the remaining $1,800 is for the other part-time salary people that work at the senior center currently. So while that number looks large, a great majority of that is because of the us taking up more of that position that was added as a result of a grant that we had received a couple of years ago. Otherwise, all the other line items stay the same with no change. And only Sean is here if you have any questions. That position works 19 hours a week. So it is a part-time position, would remain a part-time position. The annual salary for that person is in the area of 15,000, right around 16,000 part-time for 19 hours a week. The good thing is that we were able to attract somebody who very, very skilled and talented, is doing a great job for us, and so we're pleased with the fact that we were able to find somebody that has the skills that were necessary for this position.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Department 420 in the amount of $312,873.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd just like to highlight, and I'm sure everybody on the council realizes it, but also for the public knowledge that the senior center, as you can tell from the budget documentation, also raises a lot of money.
Oh, indeed.
And I think it's for the public to understand that would be helpful, whether it's grants, donations, fees. Significant number of volunteer hours too. Even like, for example, Sean, like the attendance in the gym, where you instead of hiring somebody, they actually have a schedule like a volunteer.
Right.
I just think that's a good, one specific example that really illustrates that fact. Just wanted to point that out.
And as a result of that, it does give the senior center the ability to do some programs and offer some services that go well beyond the operating budget itself, whether it involves special programs for seniors to be able to get access to various various services, transportation services especially. They do a lot of their own fundraising, through bake sales and cake sales, which sounds like it sounds like typical, but it is something that I think brings the senior center together. They do make a good amount of dollars over it, and are able to, you know, offer that, you know, plow that back into to their operation as well. They do raise some dollars that actually go into the general fund to pay for some of the services that are provided through for example, we have some services that are provided by doctors, Pro Health physicians, which was one of the items that you approved yesterday, you know, with some of the services, and they reimburse us for some of the services that they provide to the senior center. So, you know, that's, you know, so some of that money that they raise on page F12 actually comes back into the general fund.
No, I admire the work that gets done down there, and for years and years, this has been the case. People want, the members, they want to have a program, or they want to purchase an item. They are gung-ho to raise that money and get out there and get it done, and that speaks to the success of the leadership there, and to the people that go there, that enjoy being there. There's a lot of camaraderie there. There's a lot of services for people that may not be able to access them otherwise, so that they're very good about referring people to the proper social worker or some other care provider. They advise them on grandparents raising grandchildren. A lot of people are doing that now for a lot of reasons. So wonderful job. Very well done. Thank you for all that you do.
I would like to add also, Sean, I think you and Rhonda and your staff, volunteers, you guys provide an incredible service for Plainville. And you also always come in with a lean budget, so I know you do your best to try and minimize any increase, and that's appreciated.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All done. Thanks again.
Next item is Senior Center Transportation Fund.
Whoops, sorry.
It's okay. Which is on page J23, J24, J25. This total budget is $55,570, which is an increase of $1 from the previous year. A good portion of these expenditures are paid for through a grant, and the grant requires us not to lower the budget. And so Sean and her decision-making process said rather than keep it the same amount, I should raise it a little bit each year, so it's raised by $1. Going over to J25, which is, you know, the revenue side, which supports this budget, you will see that really the key number that you want to focus in on is the interfund transfers in, which comes from the general fund. So the general fund supports the 55,570 recommendation to the tune of 27,662, which is we haven't really changed that dollar amount in quite some time. And you'll see where the revenues actually are estimated to be more than the expenditures in this particular instance. Any of that surplus dollars goes into their unassigned, into their senior center fund that pays for some of the programs that they have as well.
So this would be two motions, Robert?
Yeah, the two motions would be the 55,570 and the interfund transfers in of 27,662.
62.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to accept Department 425, $55,570. Yeah, I guess that's it, right?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed?
Madam Chair, also
Yep.
for Department 425, motion to accept interfund transfer in the general fund of $27,662.
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks, Sean.
Next item we have is the police budget on page D2. Which goes from D2 to D3 to D4. Recommended budget of $4,232,419, which is an increase of $125,801 or 3.06%. The full-time salary line item actually increases, the great majority of that is in the full-time salary line item. I will say that the full-time salary line item includes an additional police officer at starting salary at $60,000, and that additional police officer would allow for the police department to assign one of their police officers, not necessarily the one that would be hired as a school resource officer, to the Board of Education. So that is included in this particular line item budget. So 60 of the 125,000 increase. Rob, have you been able to incorporate does that number include the agreement that we had with the police going forward with the 1-and-1? Was it, it had to split increases 1% in January, 1% in July?
Yes, yeah, that's correct, yeah.
So you're able to incorporate
Yeah,
those
60
numbers?
it's the 60 is a rounded figure. It's
Right.
little.
So those numbers are pretty close to being accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Based upon the contract that was negotiated.
Correct.
On the part-time salary, we have done some adjustments in terms of moving one person from a part-time to a full-time and moving a full-time to a part-time, and as a result, that reduced the part-time dollar amount. That's why part-time went down, because the person who went from full-time to part-time is getting less than the person who went from full-time to part-time to full-time. So we kind of swapped positions, and but the person who came into the part-time salary, that's the reason for the reduction in the part-time salary. The repair and maintenance, where you see the reduction of $1,900, that money's actually going down. With repair and maintenance, we're actually moving it, we're kind of transferring it down to maintenance contracts. That's why you see the increase in the maintenance contracts, and the $2,100 reduction on auto supplies and parts. We're moving pretty much down to the $2,100 increase in auto repair and maintenance. Just just trying to it's kind of difficult to distinguish between auto supplies and parts and auto repair and maintenance. So we just kind of put it all into one category. We see some decreases in recruitment and training. We don't see as, while we are, under this budget, we would be hiring, an additional police officer. We think that the dollars that are in there for recruitment and training, and most of that money that's in there is for training, not necessarily for recruitment. It's an estimate, of course, but we feel that we can get through the year with that reduction of $3,600.
Robert, the whole cost of the SRO is in the full-time salary line?
Yes, we didn't, we haven't budgeted for benefits. We wouldn't put them in here to begin with. Benefits is it's tough to gauge at this point in time. We don't know if the person's going to be a single, a two-person, or a family type of, situation. So the FICA and the Medicare, that goes along with that salary has been budgeted for in those particular accounts. We have a rough estimate as far as what our total estimated cost would be for, say, health benefits, but I can't tell you that we have that, nailed down to the dollar amount. But most of the other ones have been accounted in other areas.
Okay. I should have probably clarified, because I wasn't so concerned about benefits, but I know there was some discussion at the meeting last week about the Board of Ed and the town splitting the cost of the SRO?
Yeah, how that would work is that, well, how it was proposed was that in some of our other budgets, we pay the Board of Education for, we reimburse them for some of the IT services they give us. So that's one of the reasons why we held back on the data processing budget, because that's where most of it comes from. So in theory, we would reduce those budgets because we wouldn't reimburse the Board of Education for the IT services, and they would, increase their budget in order to, in order to make up for that revenue shortfall.
All right, so you're going to use the IT as an offset, and the town is actually going to pick up the entire expense for the SRO?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
That would not increase the Board of Education, that would not increase,
You're trying not to increase the base, right?
Can't do
well, the council can.
it. Town side we can, but the board's already voted and sent their budget over here, so.
But you can increase the board's budget if you choose to. So.
Which also decrease it.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
well,
right. So, the board, I guess a decision would have to be made. Do we still reimburse the board? If you want it to be, neutral to the Board of Education, we would still make their payments to the board, and their budget would stand as it is right now.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is that, the SRO is a police officer, and public safety is the responsibility of the town, and I think the town should pick up the cost for.
I think it should be budgeted, certainly into the, as a line item as far as the police department is concerned. Now,
Right.
now do you ask the Board of Education to reimburse you for that particular position or not? I'm suggesting that one way to do it would be not to pay them for the IT, it's kind of a swap. We give you an SRO and.
Yeah, it's almost a wash completely. Like Robert said last night, the SRO theoretically would be a 10-month position if the school would, theoretically, right? So the months of July and August, summer months, that officer may actually be on patrol, I believe. Theoretically. So 2 months worth of salary, 10 grand, it's kind of a wash.
Yeah, no, I think that's, I'm trying
Yeah.
to prevent increasing the base
Yeah.
unnecessarily.
Yeah, it's
Because of
it's
MBR.
almost a perfect wash with the IT dollar amounts.
Okay.
One thing I also wanted to point out is in that salary line, you have dispatchers too. So remember, it's not just police officers, it is dispatchers. The dispatchers' salaries are about 300,000 of that. And only one dispatcher is on max step. They all get steps next year. And then in addition to that, there were about 8 police officers that got steps as well. So it is more than a 2% increase, not only because of the SRO inclusion, but because of dispatch steps and police officer steps. So
There's always a lot of moving parts in the police budget.
this budget's hard, very hard to calculate, guys.
But I would like to point out that if this budget, if the SRO goes forward as, at least we recommended, earlier this, several weeks ago, and what's in front of you right now, one of two things needs to happen. One is that the board would have to absorb that loss of revenue by reducing their line items in other areas, or you have to increase the Board of Education's budget to cover that.
yeah,
Or you don't give them or you continue to give them the revenue and absorb just the total cost in the town budget.
Right, and that's what I'm saying we should do. Because otherwise, again, it just increases the base for MBR.
Well,
For no valid reason.
I agree, and in the end, whether it comes from the Board of Education's budget or the town budget, it all comes, in the end, it all comes from the same pocketbook, same pockets.
I would like to ask a question, and this has to do with the SRO position. It was not approved at the Board of Education meeting when they voted on their budget.
It was not approved to be funded in the Board of Education's budget.
Correct, that's what I'm saying. It was not approved to be funded in the Board of Education budget. So at that time, there was no desire to have that position as part of their programming. So now, I just want to be sure, and Maureen is here, so she's going to help me with all this.
I will.
I just want to be sure that we are not preemptively doing something that should be a policy decision of the Board of Education to have an school resource officer. We're not imposing this on them if in fact there still isn't a desire for that to happen.
I know
Maybe
that-
Maureen can help me with that.
Yeah, I know they've had several discussions at the Board of Education since that, and certainly since they made that decision, there's been the incident in Florida, which I guess has, raised everybody's consciousness about, whether something should be done, across the United States with regards to certainly gun violence in schools, so.
Should I speak from here?
No, why don't you come on?
Okay.
Get sit next to the chief, he'll make room for you.
I always feel safer sitting next to the chief. So we did have a Board of Ed meeting last Thursday evening with only 2 agenda items. One was the SRO, and one was discussion about the walkout currently scheduled for tomorrow.
It's not called the walk-in though, right?
It's a walk-in, yes,
Okay.
which I'm actually happy about. I can't be happy about that at all. Anyway, long story short, the board, with the chief present, debated the purpose of the SRO once again and all of the issues. My charge to them was an outgrowth of a meeting that we had earlier the previous week relative to if the financial piece of it was off the table, would the board support an SRO, which is where we left our meeting not too long ago. And after much deliberation, numerous board members asked quite a few questions of the chief. And at the end of the meeting, or close to the end, Andrea announced, is there anyone around the table after all this discussion that would object to an SRO? And there was no objection. Did we take an official vote? No, but it was a consensus, I would say. And that's been consistent for the past few days. Any conversations that we've had speak to the fact that the board does not object. I will say this, when it was part of the board's budget, it was a 5-4 split vote, and a lot of that had to do with financial concerns because of our budget being so, negatively impacted this year by insurance. Once that came off the table, there was less concern about it. And we've had a tremendous amount of discussions with the chief, and at this point I feel confident saying that the board is not opposed to it. It's not in their budget now.
And so as the chief administrator for the school system,
Yes.
you'll have to develop a policy about a school resource officer being in the schools, and would that be part of your obligation to do that, or is that something the town is going to have to be taking care of?
I think when it comes to how the SRO will operate in the schools, we would have to develop protocol for that. How that works fiscally, I guess, would be more of a town issue, but in terms of how the SRO operates, would be definitely something we'd have to discuss. I consider it very collaborative. Chief and I have discussed how is this person chosen. It's a collaborative effort. There's no automatic appointment. It's going to be a discussion, and it has to be someone with the right temperament and skill set for that. But we've had numerous conversations in that regard, and I think we're ready to move forward. Obviously, there are details to work out once this does come to pass.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Normally, the way this
Please.
is done is with a memo of understanding between the police department, the Board of Ed, and the town. And we have protocols on our side that are police-oriented, and the school has protocols on their side that are school-driven. And we mesh those together. We basically have a memo of understanding with both policies sitting side by side, and then the overarching preamble of what the program is meant to deliver for services. So that it's, as the superintendent said, it's totally collaborative, and it's all mapped out so that somebody else could pick up those policies and move on with it if they had to.
Okay,
Ask a question.
sure.
Can you expand on what those services are that the SRO would provide?
Sure. So basically, the SRO is in school. This is a very basic concept that surrounds this premise of having an SRO in the school. A school resource officer is that go-to liaison between the students, the faculty, the student, the police department, parents in the police department. So there's this sort of pivotal role that the officer is playing on a day-to-day basis and on-the-fly basis, where they're building relationships and they're building bonds of trust with the students, the faculty, and the parents. So it's a logical extension to a community-oriented policing philosophy. But beyond that, the traditional method in the way I've been trained in and the way I've trained others in is the school resource officer actually teaches in a classroom curriculum, as part of the curriculum. And that's worked out through the school as far as where that appears on what we refer to as, on the police side, as the trace map for the school, whether that was in health or whether that was in poli-sci, wherever it ended up in the school system, the officer has a base class that they're involved with. But along those lines, there's after-school activities, they're in-school activities, and they're participating all the time. So they're sort of woven into the fabric of the school activities. And the idea behind this is to preempt problems before they happen. It's not a school guard position. It's not somebody there that's primarily going to stand at a door and check everybody in. That has very little to do with what this position does. It's about developing trust with the students so that we glean information long before something boils over, so to speak. And that's pretty much the basic concept behind it. There's other things involved with it, obviously, but
Do we feel there's problems at the high school that require community policing that we're not, that aren't played out in the newspaper? Is there a drug problem? Is there a violence problem? Is there bullying? Is there guns?
yeah, personally, I have to say to you that I've been involved in 2 or 3 school systems very closely, and I can't recall a school system that wouldn't benefit from this.
But that wasn't my question. I asked if there were specific problems at Plainville High School that would require this.
But I think that question sort of pretends that we're there to stop a fight in the cafeteria or a bullying in progress. Again, I can't really speak to that. What I'm saying is that, let's take the topic of bullying. If somebody came to the school resource officer, a young person came to the school resource officer and said, hey, is this legal or is this illegal? Every time we go by this kid, he's doing X, Y, and Z. And then the officer expands on that and develops a conversation on it. It starts to proactively look into what is this other child doing, what is this other student actually doing, and whether that requires a follow-up conversation or some type of interaction. That's where the preemptive work starts. And so when you ask the question if it's necessary, I can't give you a rundown of how many physical altercations, bullying incidents, etc. I don't base my opinion on the school resource officer on that.
Do we have an idea as to how many times the police are going to Plainville High School at a given time, a given school year?
I do, I can pull that up for you in just a moment.
Okay. And then is there any data or a study anywhere that shows the impact of a school resource officer and what it's done for a community over a course of a school year?
Sure. There's probably off the top of my head, I recall 20 different studies that I've reviewed prior to my first meeting on the school resource officer, and I would say they're evenly split. There's studies that show minority children are marginalized from having a police officer in the school, and there's studies that show students are overwhelmingly more secure and feel better about the learning experience when a uniformed officer's in the school. And the studies run the gamut.
Sure.
And like every other study you look at, it's going to really sort of weigh in on what the person doing the study wants it to. So there's sort of intrinsic bias with most of these studies. But I would suggest that my own personal experience with it is where I'm coming from, so it's purely an experiential presentation on my part, and I've seen it only do positive things for the youth and for the parents. And it really does help the police department as well, because it connects us to that population of young people who might otherwise not have any interaction with us.
I appreciate you answering all my questions, but I think, I'm guessing that a lot of people think this is someone there to stop an active shooter situation, and I wanted everyone to have a really strong understanding of what an SRO is going to do. I mean, for those people that are going to watch this, I think they're thinking there's an armed guard in the school to stop an active shooter, and I wanted a better explanation, so when I'm questioned about it, I can be more prepared.
That's somewhere in the mix, but I would be disingenuous to present it in a way that showcased that to assuage everyone's fears about what happened in Parkland.
Certainly.
So I try to come about this with a very open and honest presentation.
And what I'm saying is I don't want people to think that's the only purpose to have
Understood.
this person in the school.
And I'm in agreement with you, but I wouldn't leave that on the cutting room floor, so to speak.
Sure,
It
absolutely.
is truly a good person, an honorable person with the ability to stop that type of activity quicker than had they not been there.
Sure.
That's in theory.
Okay,
I
thank
have
you.
the data that Mr. Nazel was looking for. Anecdotally, I've spoken to every superintendent in the Hartford area. Everyone has an SRO except Wallingford and us. Many have numerous. Every one of the superintendents say they would never give it up. It's invaluable. They do see a reduction in student issues. For Plainville High, this year we have had 5 children arrested, 3 on campus, 2 off, and the police, as of December 31st, had been to campus 40 times. Now, that's not strictly for arrest matters. It can be for mental health issues, students needing medical attention, and the police come through with the ambulance. So there are various reasons why investigations that don't lead to arrest. But as of December 31st, we've had 40 visits, and some were protracted. There was an investigation into a matter on a bus that took a full day of police involvement, and other matters are rather quick. So it just it runs the gamut of experiences. But having done my due diligence about what's the value to a school system, and again, I was in favor of the SRO even prior to Parkland. I didn't see it as a preventative. I saw it as a proactive. I think it just has nothing but positives to add with the right person on the bus. And I will say, in full disclosure, one superintendent I spoke to in a very nearby community said we had one SRO that did not work out. He was not a good fit with the students. Therefore, he was dismissed from that position, and someone new was brought in. So you have to have the right person in the position.
May I ask a follow-up to that?
Of course.
I apologize.
Yep, you're on. No, you have the floor.
So that the right person isn't hired, are we now assuming yet another payroll position because we can't fire that person? Talk to me about how what happens in that situation.
Basically, Mr. Nazzo, we would do an application type process, right? And most of this comes from my understanding and my knowledge of my personnel. So I have now 7.5 years under my belt with most of the people there. Anyone newer than that was hired under my leadership, along with the town council and the town manager. So we have a pretty good understanding of who the employees are, and we would put out an application process. We would set up an oral interview panel. It would be structured under the North American School Resource Officer concept, the NASRO concept. Questions are asked that are meant to elicit their fit, whether it's a good fit or not. But I think the core of who we're hiring are people that I can honestly put my name on and say to you that, yeah, I've seen conduct with these people, demonstrated behaviors with this person that would lead me to believe that they would be a good fit. So a lot of it's predicated on what I've seen, what I know, and what I know to be a good fit through my 30+ years of policing. On top of that, you're inheriting knowing that you can't just move aside from that position. In fact, that's the awesome responsibility of the leadership on both the school side and the police side, that if the person's not working out, we take a look at it, reevaluate it, and if it's not a good fit, we move them on. Now, I know currently we have 3 energetic, very good examples of police officers in our community who would be interested in this position. So I already know in advance that if, let's say, the person that I felt fit very well, but just for some reason didn't work out, we'd have to remove them from the program, and we would initiate another officer into that position. But as far as a firing, or we can't get rid of this person now because we're stuck with them through because of union rules or whatever, it really doesn't apply to this.
No, that was my concern, that we hire somebody from outside, bring them in, we've added a police officer that we now can't get rid of because they don't fit, and we've added another payroll, another
Well,
line
this will
item.
come from, this is 99% sure it's coming from the rank and file now. I mean, it's a possibility, however very slight, that we would find a certified officer who was expert in this area who wanted to come on the job with us, and then we would have to consider that, obviously, but that's not what I'm leaning towards.
I understand. Thank you both very much.
Madam Chair, just want to be clear on the selection process. So when you open it up, the position, would it be open first to in-house?
It's always going to be an in-house thing.
Okay, yeah, so you would open it up first just to in-house, and
Yes.
then you hired from, internally, then you would,
Backfill.
then you would, the new person would be the one just added to the force.
Right, basically backfilling the open position.
But it could be just internal, you don't have to post it outside, external. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Chief, real quick, Last week you and I talked, and I know the stopping an active shooter, that's a very small part of what an SRO does. I get that. But you and I talked about fortification of buildings. And is there any plan, are you in discussions with the superintendent or the town manager at all about something preventive as opposed to a school resource officer, fortification of vestibules, bulletproof glass on the first floor of the schools, alarms on doors, those kinds of things?
So we went through the all hazards plan, and we had the quote-unquote expert come in and do the evaluation of buildings under Superintendent Kitching. And a lot of that information is still valid. A lot of changes were made because of that evaluation. We're adhering to the state protocols on doing our inspections and doing our active shooter training. So we're doing all of that. I consider all of that proactive. I consider the SRO to be a piece of that proactive approach to school shooters, because I think in my world, developing that intel, that information in advance, and then thwarting that plan or interrupting the cycle of carrying through with plans is hugely important in the line of crime prevention. As far as having the vestibule fortified, or central point of entry, exit, etc., the bus pickup and exit, where that location is, all of those things I believe are going to be enhanced by having a school resource officer, because we're going to have direct feedback from a police officer in the school administration at the same time. Very, very financially burdensome to do some of these hardening techniques. Films on the windows, 3M makes a film that's bullet resistant, there's bulletproof glass, there's metal detectors. From where I come from, my initial reason for believing in a school resource officer is because I don't have a strong belief in creating a prison-like atmosphere for schools, because the nature of schools is an environment for learning. So there's a balancing act there, but I think that you match your hardscape with your risk assessment. And so I think the school resource officer is a common denominator everywhere, and from there we can help to make recommendations. I gave you the example when we were talking, I'll share it for the council, that we could hardscape the entire area. We can put the film on the windows, we can put the metal detectors at the door, we could have a single point of entry with a sentry standing there checking IDs and scanning bags, and then someone from the cafeteria props the door open, have a cigarette, and somebody comes in the open door. So this is the type of thing where you're going to find some residual benefit in the school resource officer, because they'll be in the building when they find that door. They have the conversation with the personnel who propped it open. They close the door immediately, and it's being addressed in a way that, not only in real time, but in a way that's authoritative, that we're not going to allow for this. So I think you'll see the building harden up by having a school resource officer. But as far as the actual components, we have a list through our vendor who made all kinds of recommendations, and quite honestly, when you do the risk analysis, we could talk about how much money there is to spend on, hardening up some of those points, but.
Oh, no, it's definitely not inexpensive, but, as we discussed last week, if you've got an SRO in one school and you have 4 schools that are unprotected, how do you balance that out? How do you give peace of mind to the parents in town that, their kids in elementary schools are going to be safe?
Well, the idea also is this a multi-faceted approach for us too. We're planning on bringing the patrol force in a little bit more in a rather unconventional manner. Not a lot of towns use a patrol force the way I envision using ours and liaising with that school resource officer. So I'm seeing more what we refer to as omnipresence. Will be everywhere and anywhere and unpredictably in places where you might not normally see a patrol officer. Maybe walk into the office at Linden Street, and then 15 minutes later another district is arriving at Top Lawn. And so we're trying to work all of these pieces in. This whole post-Columbine thing, this has been an evolutionary process. Parkland really didn't bring these concepts out in me. This is really since Columbine that the landscape has changed, and we've been trying to do this. Money's a huge factor in it. And again, most school faculty will say that they don't want their schools to be prisons. because it just doesn't bring about that environment of learning. So we're balancing. We're trying to balance. I don't think that we will ever be at a point where we have 5 school resource officers. So when I hear that concept that, well, we only have it in one school, well, that one officer, that one school resource officer will be over at the middle school here and there, and it will be spread around a little bit, but I don't want to mislead anybody by saying that they'll be in all 5 schools, because we're trying to inculcate the mindset of young people at a formative age, in a formative age group where they develop trust with us and tell us what's going on. That's really where this all comes from, is just getting that information and working with it. And on the debrief on many of these school shootings, had somebody confided in somebody and said, this person is going off the rails, there's a problem, we would have interrupted that cycle of violence, there's no doubt about it. And the Parkland incident, I think, has inspired all of us to revisit this seriously, because there were so many catastrophic failures on the police side. At least this is what we see from the news cycle, the 24-hour news cycle. There were catastrophic failures on law enforcement side. There were failures on the federal side. There were failures maybe even within the school building. So, you know, this is where I think that in a town like Plainville, we're fortunate enough to have a close relationship with me, the town manager, the superintendent, the board of ed, the council, where we're communicating like this. And I believe in my heart of hearts that all of you have developed a trust in me, and you've had a trust before I got here with the town manager and the superintendent. But I feel very confident that, you know, if I tell you I'm going to deliver a product that's going to work, it's going to work. Is a 100% guarantee? Absolutely not. But my word's my bond that we'll do the very best we can to develop that type of information that would thwart the type of incident we're seeing. It's never going to be a 100% guarantee. We say this all the time. We say this about speed bumps. We say this about accidents. Can't guarantee 100% safety, but we could try like heck to ensure that we're in the best position to thwart it and then deal with it if we have to.
If I could add, since the shooting, and again, this happened after Columbine, it happened after Newtown, you always look at a scenario and say, where could we potentially plug a hole? So after Parkland, we met as an administrative team with Sergeant Marquis and have begun to look very carefully at our exit and entrance protocols, because that is, in fact, when that most recent tragedy occurred. And already, less than a month into this, 2 of our schools have made some significant changes to their drop-off and release protocols, and the other 3 are still working on those. We're meeting with Sergeant Marquis again Thursday to do an update. Again, as Chief mentioned, we're going to have to invest in some more walkie-talkies because communication is crucial during these times. We already had plans to modify the vestibule at Linden, so that I hope will still happen with capital monies from this year. We didn't get the security grant, unfortunately. The state was only awarding them this year to folks who hadn't gotten them before, though I'm hearing, rumors that maybe more money is coming forward because of Parkland. So we are not putting our eggs in one basket with the SRO. We've already been very proactively looking at how to continuously tighten up and shore up what we do at the school level and at the district level with Chief's support, Sergeant Marquis' support.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may.
Sure.
Superintendent Brown, of the 40 trips that the Plainville PD made to the high school, does that include, for example, like when they were there for a varsity football game, or those incidences where they were called to the...
This would be specifically, we called via walkie or via telephone to let them know we needed them there for a purpose. This does not include the football games or any type of police supervision at an event. That's a whole separate set of data.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Thank you for your insight. I just wanted to be clear that the board is behind this position.
Yes.
And that all the members are okay with that.
Yes, I triple checked with everybody.
Okay, that makes my job easier. Okay, any other questions? All right, we have a motion on the table?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to approve Department 201 in the amount of $4,232,419.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion?
By, if I may.
Sure.
By approving this section of the budget, are we approving the SRO?
Yes, it's in the it's in this line item. It is.
All right, thank you.
I would point out that this budget also includes reducing some dollars that would go to the Board of Education for the IT position. And so at the end, we're going to add those dollars up, because that's going to have to get added back into our budget at the end. Or we could do it by individual departments. Remember, we have.
But I know we had data processing.
Right, that
There
we
were
had.
some dollars there. There was some
Right.
dollars in the chief's budget, I think,
Right,
for
so we.
IT.
So we may just consolidate that all into the data processing budget rather than have it within a, when we go to the data processing budget, I think we need to add dollars back, instead of subtracting 25,000, because we were lowering that data processing by 25, we may have to increase it, get it back to, get it back to where it was, and maybe increase it, the remaining, we have like 19,000 somewhere else, spread it somewhere else. We gotta put $49,000 back into the general government budget somehow.
You got 55 here. We took away 25 in the data processing, we took away 15 from police part-time.
Yeah.
There's 40. We added 55, and the other 9 comes from senior center and library.
Right, but the part-time, we have to put that back into the part-timer. Because we're gonna pay the Board of Education the 15 out of the police department budget now. We took it out.
Unless they want to forego it.
You understand what I'm saying, Ron?
We were going to do that as in-kind services. It wasn't
Right, but
budgetary.
in order to do that, the Board of Education is gonna have to increase the Board of Education's budget, or they're gonna have to reduce their line item somewhere else, because they only have so much
So
time.
so you're saying that they didn't include the cost of the
That's correct.
the IT person?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So we have to,
Okay.
in order not to increase the Board of Education's budget to deal with the MDR, we're gonna have to reimburse the board the 49,000 that we currently do it, and we have to add that back into our budget.
Yes, okay, I thought they'd put that in, I thought
No.
that was in the, Sam said he was gonna put that in, okay, all right, okay.
He did put it in, it just
But
didn't get approved by the Board of
I got you.
Education.
I got you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Okay, so I don't know if we wanna put it back into each individual budget, or whether we just wanna do it in data processing, so it's, so it's not.
It would be easier for me in this case to put it right back in data processing, it's where it came up before.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And we haven't approved that department yet.
No,
So
that's why.
that's something that, if you want to
Right, we
do
had
that tonight.
155 that we have to.
Correct.
Exactly.
That hasn't been approved yet,
Right.
so you can take care of whatever.
Yeah, I just want to make
adjustments.
sure that by approving this, and by not impacting the Board of Education's budget, we're going to have to add $49,000 back into the general government budget. Okay, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, I'm just, okay, all right.
So where are we going to find that extra 49 to balance that off?
We're going to add it.
Hey. Who we going to take that away from?
Lights going on.
I mean, you've gone through our budget, I mean, you've seen the individual line items, so.
I know, it's always something you can do. Did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
if I may. Chief Catania, in the summer months, when he's not gonna be, or when he or she won't be at the school, could we use this person to, let's say, cover the vacation times of the officers in the summer strictly, so that we could maybe decrease some overtime and maybe be able to make up some of that 50,000, or?
Good idea in theory, but quite honestly, when you put an SRO in place, you're getting someone that's going to take the vacation time when the children do, be off on the days the faculty and the children are. So oftentimes they're using up a lot of their time in the summer, just like the teachers being up. But it's a good idea, and what we've also done with it in the past, in my experience, is use it for traffic assignments, use it for special assignments. We did a 2-week junior police academy where I came from, and it was a huge success with the parents and the schools and the youth. So there's plenty to do. Using it just purely to cover vacancies, it won't be as effective as I would like to tell you it would be, but yes, certainly you can use it that way. You can certainly use that person to cover portions of a squad. Normally, they're taking so much of their vacation time or whatever, especially when you take a tenured employee or you take a veteran employee who has a considerable amount of vacation time, they're not able to use it through the year, because we're basically entering into an agreement with them that we don't want you off during the year, else right, we need you in school. So that's kind of the relationship we have, where the summer becomes the point where they take their time. But it can be used to plug some of those spots. Yes.
If it would be used to plug some of those spots, would that need to be something contractual where we'd say, well, you're only gonna get your schedule this far out and you might be forced to work any of the shifts during the day, or
No,
is
it
it
would
something that would all be?
It'd be known right up front that that's how we were going to work the schedule. They'd be amenable to it, or they would say they wouldn't be, and we would know that right up front. That would really speak to whether or not they were willing to work that type of position. The person who fills the SRO position inherently has to be very flexible, because we do have to be able to do those things with them. And you may also find that they work some of the overtime. So if there's an opening somewhere, there's a private duty job in the summer or whatever, they may be working that. They're entitled to all the contractual rights. It's just we have a general understanding, and we tell them right up front, we may need you to cover a day shift in July, and they cover it. And so that might stop one overtime piece. Really where we're running into the overtime issues is the use of the vacation and holiday time, sick time and injury time that just needs to be covered. And you know, that's one person we might be able to put in one spot when we have 5 openings.
Right.
So, but we would do that. We would use it to the best of our ability to put them in whatever spots we could.
I think that would make it feel a little bit better with the situation is like if we could use that person in the summer where we would have vacancies or people leaving for vacation and things like that. So I can trust your judgment on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Animal control, is that going to be next?
We never-
Oh, we didn't vote?
Well, yeah, we started asking questions.
Sorry, I put okay next to it. Sorry.
We'll take it.
Okay, motion made? Yes,
Motion made,
all
second.
right. If there is no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Sorry.
Animal control, proposed budget is $83,417, which is an increase of $2,340 or 2.89%. All of that increase is in full-time salary. Do we have a step on that, Rob? Is that what?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
We have decreases in some of the other line items, you know, the smaller line item, decreases in professional development, agency subsidy, and auto repair and maintenance. There is a new vehicle that's being purchased for the animal control officer. It's actually it's being outfitted as we speak, so it is in the state. So the feeling is that we probably don't need as much auto repair or maintenance, so that was the reason why we felt we could reduce that somewhat.
okay, can I have a motion to approve, please?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to approve Department 205 in the amount of $83,417.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Madam Chair, just
Yes.
had a question.
Sure.
I was wondering, as I was looking at the statistics early today under animal complaints, is that typically unleashed dogs or what type of other instances?
It runs the gamut.
Runs the gamut.
Also, yes, it could be roaming dogs, dog bites, nuisance barking, some of those cases of neglect, cruelty to animals, in cases where Donna is just storing or pet finding through petfinder.com, trying to adopt out dogs. So she has very wide therapies.
And we're at a level that would be typical for our community?
We're actually at a pretty high level.
Yeah.
It's a pretty busy community for
I wonder,
pet
yeah.
friends.
Yeah, okay.
In the close quarters of the community, the small footprint of the dense population, it tends to bring out more complaints as far as nuisance barking, dogs roaming, dogs littering on property off leash, et
That's
cetera.
exactly what I was wondering, and that's an
It
interesting
does.
point,
It
that
plays
the
a role.
density, the population density can increase that sort of thing.
And we have also the nuisance bites and things like that are more common because the yards are close. The dog gets over in someone's yard and bites a neighbor, and we're all there for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I just Chief, we had some real unleashed dog problems in our parks, and we can talk about that another time, because I'd like to hear how we can, as a responsible dog owner, who leashes his dogs all the time, it's a nuisance. So Trumbull Park especially, we can talk about that another time, but I figured seeing we're talking about animal control, I'd throw that out there for you.
Thanks.
Write it down on that pad.
I'll call you tomorrow.
Please do. Please do.
Any other questions or comments regarding the animal control budget item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Next is emergency medical services, D7 and D8. This is basically what we call our coordinated medical emergency direction, which is CMED. It's something that we contract with actually the North Central Connecticut Emergency Medical Services Councils, Inc. A lot of words there. It's basically a per capita dollar amount. The amount for next year would be $15,864, which is an increase of $530 or 3.47%. It's based on a per capita, not unlike our regional health district. And you can see on the chart below what the per capita charge is, and you can see that we have a slight population decrease, but we have an increase in the per capita. So the net result is that we have a $530 increase. If you'd like to know what type of services we get from that, I can certainly ask the chief to do so. And this basically has to do with emergency medical response when somebody is injured, and dispatch will hand, and it's a requirement, I guess, of the state that we have to provide this type of medical ability to be able to direct the people at the scene that, with some medical advice. And what happens is the dispatcher transfers it to this company who are trained in medical, and so then they talk about, okay, what should I do next? And they, these are the symptoms and these are the problems, at least until the ambulance shows up. Keeps people alive until the ambulance gets there.
Important.
Otherwise, we have, that's a constant discussion. So if we have only one dispatcher on board, and that dispatcher is providing emergency medical advice, and then the next call comes in because of something else, and that's when it becomes a real problem. This doesn't happen all the time, but it can take up a significant amount of time. So we find that it's cost effective for us to have this service when needed, as opposed to having somebody available 24/7 to be able to handle that.
If I may, Ray?
Sure.
Just add a little bit of backdrop to that. We do over 2,000 medical calls a year. So we just looked at these numbers today, and we were 2,050 medical calls. In the town of Plainville, as in many other towns in Connecticut, we're the licensed first responders for medical calls. Some towns have paid fire departments and EMTs and paramedics who respond. We respond in that capacity in Plainville, as many other communities do. And so this state requirement to deliver emergency medical dispatch information, it does exactly what the town manager is saying. We are on the phone and then committed to that call and see it through until a higher medical authority arrives to take over from us. So it can't be interrupted. So you can't take a person and put them on hold who's actively having a heart attack. So I use that as an extreme example, but that's the nature of what emergency medical dispatch is there for, and these are the people who back us up on that. So we have several layers. They're part of the system. We do a lot of medical calls in town.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
motion to approve Department 206 in the amount of $15,824.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Next is the capital budget for the police department. It's on page L5. There's a number of requests, some of which I've recommended, some of which I have not. I'm going to skip the computer-aided dispatch to begin. I'll save that for last. The radio lease, Goosetown radio system. We have our lease is the 5th year of a 5-year, which is $157,848. and I've recommended that for payment. I mean, we're committed to that. There is a buyout to own the system where we can continue to get, to lease going forward. But for this year, we were obligated to the 5th year of the lease. The patrol cruisers, the chief has asked for 2, given, our particular circumstances, monetary situation. I'm recommending the purchase of 1, which includes the outfitting of that particular cruiser as well. Defibrillators in the police cruiser, they asked for $6,400. I did not, I'm not recommending that funding for next year, only because something has to give. We do have defib, so this would be a replacement defib.
That's correct.
Video camera in the police cruiser, they asked for $14,000. I cut that back to 7. Asked for replacement of the handguns and the shotguns. I pushed that off at least until next year, at the very least, but not funding it this year. Police equipment for the vests, for the protection of the police officers, I did ask for $79.40, and I'm recommending that as well. The computer replacement asked for $18,000, and I funded it at $11,762. Also asked for a administrative detective vehicle and a pickup truck as well. I did not recommend funding for those 2 items as well. With regards to the computer-aided dispatch and records, this is something that we've been trying to work with CROG and the state for many years with a system that they were developing. It has been slow in developing. There's no, we're at a point where, our existing system is being kept together, pretty much with rubber bands and Band-Aids, in the hopes that, that this system would come along. We see that's still, it could be years out, and we're not even sure whether it's going to be successful. The chief has done some investigation in what else is out there. At one time, we were looking at a system that would cost significantly more than what we have budgeted here, but he's done some additional research and found another system, which I'll let you speak about, Chief, that is more reasonable, and I feel that it's time for us to, this is really the central core of our police operation, the computer-aided dispatch and record keeping, and if that goes down, and we're, for any significant period of time, we are, it really is going to hamper the safety in our community. So, with your permission, I'd like to ask the chief to talk a little bit about that. Since that is a new item.
Sure. Now, this is a one-time expenditure, correct? This is not ongoing, like a 5-year, 3-year commitment to that money?
That's correct. You'll see 16,000 in the next. That's just servicing it.
Okay, but this is a one-time expense. It's not like our 5-year communication system. Okay.
Sure. Okay, so the current system, a little background for you. The current system we've been using was rolled out probably in 1992 or somewhere around there. We used it where it came from. We run both Plainville and where it came from in Simsbury. We're on the ground floor with that program implemented by retired police officers, and the program quickly collapsed, was sold, and picked up by Smith & Wesson, sold, and picked up by another vendor who then discontinued servicing it. So this program has been unsupported for minimally 20 years. So we continue to use it. We're very fortunate to have Matt Demore. Detective Demore is very, very computer savvy. He writes his codes. He does all this neat stuff with the computers, and he's been able to limp this along quite well. He can make adjustments on the fly. What's happening now, though, in the last 3 years in earnest, maybe even more than that, but 3 years that I could really speak to, the software is running away from the hardware, so to speak. So as the software on the Microsoft end gets more and more sophisticated, and Windows gets more and more sophisticated, and Matt starts blowing my mind with things like it's a SQL-based program, or it's not, it's this, it's that, and basically he can't support it anymore. So this has been collapsing for us truly mission critical collapse in the last 3 years. We thought we were doing the right thing by going along with the vendor who presented a package called the Connecticut Chiefs Solution. CT Chiefs was something that was promised to us 3 years ago. We have never to date, even with the grant, and I remember speaking to all of you about the $80,000 grant we took. I thought we were really doing something fantastic there by going that route. It was no money out of our pocket, and we were getting a new software program. To date, we have taken no delivery on any part of that CAD RMS. So CAD is the computer-aided dispatch. RMS is the records management system. That is truly, as the town manager said, the backbone of our operation. That's all of our storage of records, and that's all of our dispatching. So when you call us for a complaint, we have you in the files. That all comes through CAD. When we store our records that we do, our case reports, whatever, that all goes through RMS. So you can see the historical value of all of this information for us from the investigative end. We are quickly losing a grip on what we're doing with our storage and records management. We're running out of space for paper. I mean, we've stored paper forever. We're just trying to stay dry and high right now, high and dry, so to speak. We've started a program where we have purchased a commercial grade scanner, and we're starting to put our records into computer storage. This is a very slow process for us, but it's tens of thousands of dollars to have it done commercially. We had that priced out at $90,000 to put our records into a computer storage system. Obviously, I wasn't going to come before you and ask you for that kind of money. We're storing it a little bit at a time. We're really doing our best to conserve money, but we're at mission critical. We're never going to get CT Chiefs. CT Chiefs is a bust. That was heavily backed by the state. I felt a certain amount of loyalty to the state with that program. I may have waited a little too long, hoping that the state would come around. The new vendor who bought it up is a wonderful person, and he's got tremendous ideas, but there's not enough support with other departments to make that program a success. So everyone has abandoned it, and now, as I waited, we would have to take on a lion's share of the development money to make this new untested product actually work. And we're just not there. So we went to another vendor. We got a price of around $190,000 for this product, for their product. And their maintenance fees were roughly 2.5 times what you see there. The smaller number is the maintenance fee that you would expect to. That's the gift that keeps on giving. We will have that support forever to be able to back up the systems. Good news there is it takes Matt away from the computer aspect of his work and puts him into the investigative aspect that we pay him to do. So we put a police officer back into investigation as opposed to supporting the antiquated CAD RMS system. The system that we looked at is used by approximately 20 departments in the state. Some of them are fairly good-sized departments. We have tremendous luck with it. It's a well-supported software package, and people are happy with it. The other program that we were going to almost default to that just came in at an outrageous price, we could do without it. So what you're looking at is really the cost of a very, very good program. We've looked at it. They've demonstrated for us several different times. We've incorporated it into the fire department, because remember, what we're doing is we're trying to extend our technology out to the fire department as well. They're on board for it. They've looked at it. We'll make the transition seamlessly, or as seamlessly as these transitions can be made. The company's already looked at our data migration. They believe they could do it. Our Matt DeMore believes they could do it. I'm pretty confident that that'll all work out. Even though that is a large number, and it's a large number for me as well, but we really have no way out of this. It's either the option now has come down to, in the absence of CT Chiefs honoring the $80,000 grant purchase, it's come down to either we write our current system to collapse and at some point have to figure out how we're going to manage the records, or in somewhat of an emergency fashion, or we migrate over to this more affordable system, if you will, and certainly more affordable against the backdrop of the $190,000. And full disclosure, that company did offer me a discount of $10,000. So if you want to call it $180, I don't want anyone to find out that they offered that generous $10,000 discount. but, and I didn't disclose it. But, so that's where we're at with the software package right now.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I wanted to make sure I understand the cost, the 117,500. That would include the software, and it would also include service setup, helping you export data from the old system into
That
the
migration, yes.
the migration of the data into the system, and that would be included in the
Yes.
in that figure. Then the following year, the 16,000 would be for continued support, upgrades.
Right, online maintenance.
Online
A lot of
maintenance.
these are phoned in. A lot of this maintenance
Yeah,
work
yeah.
now comes over the internet.
Mhm.
But that's what it is. It's basically to maintain the product, the updates,
Mm-hmm.
software updates, that type of thing, because they're constantly modifying and changing and improving, or should be anyways. And my research shows that they are, the other departments that are using it. This is a relatively small Connecticut-based
Oh,
company.
it's good.
Yeah, it's out of Westport, Connecticut. And, they've been around for a long time. They just don't have the lion's share of the service that, let's say, a Next Gen does or the other does.
Okay. And does it reside on the server in-house?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Mhm.
Does Westport use
Any
it?
other questions?
I don't know. I never asked. I was more interested in finding out how Orange was doing with it, because their numbers kind of matched ours. And, you know, the way they're using their software sort of replicates what we're trying to do. So I didn't ask that. I venture a guess they are, but I'll find out.
Any other questions? Chief? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
They don't take a vote on CIP till the end, so. They don't take a vote on CIP till the end.
We're
We
gonna
just
do that.
explain it.
We're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Very good.
You can stay right there. We're keeping the seat warm for Andrea, right? No.
Thank you.
Cross that. You're certainly welcome to stay.
Okay, so Robert, we are here to discuss the capital for the Board of Ed. H9 is interfund transfers out capital for BOE.
Yeah, we're also here to talk about the Board of Ed's budget as a whole as well.
Okay, where do we want to look at that?
What page do we have? Where do we have the Board of Education budget? Because it's not listed on this list.
Section I.
It's a whole section high.
I-6 would start the section with all the numbers that you'd be looking for.
I don't know if you want to, if you want to.
Well,
I
I've
know that we've
already
had some
seen this
summer-
a couple of times, but I would offer that, offer any of the council folks up here who haven't, or who have questions, or want some further information about some of this summary sheet to, or Maureen would like to start and do a little brief overview. We've heard it a couple of times at our public hearings and things of that nature, so.
I mean, has anything changed since, I mean, that would be my first thing,
Yep.
is what, any material changes to anything?
None, since the Board of Education approved it, there's been no further changes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Board of Education's budget at $37,322,912.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? the big number. Nobody has anything to say up here? Okay, if there is no discussion, all those in favor of Board of Education budget?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, we can go to the capital, H9. You can see in the bottom half, the Board of Education had asked for a network upgrade, 22.5. The actual network upgrade is I believe twice that amount, and we're getting some E-rate reimbursement for that, so the actual project amount is double that number, $45,000. Cleaning equipment aggregate, they asked for $77.83. I did not recommend it. In consultation with the superintendent of schools and the business manager, I basically indicated what was their highest priority out of these requests, and based upon trying to meet my goal of $800,000 total budget and balancing off the needs, and so the ones that I've recommended are the ones that I believe the superintendent had as the higher priorities, and not that the ones that aren't funded aren't priorities, but in terms of if I had this amount of money to spend, this is where I'd want to spend it. So
I would agree with
this
that.
is where the needs are the most.
We started out at 341, 218, that's what I proposed to the board, and they cut, and it was down to 253, 435, and that featured cuts in the facilities component of it, and then I put it before the town manager, and he removed all the facilities capital improvements, so we're down to 224, 900, which is strictly technology, infrastructure, and technology equipment. And I will mention at least the infrastructure part that Town Manager Lee just mentioned is going to benefit the town as well as the Board of Education.
We're part of the network upgrade.
You're all part of the network.
I don't know if you have any questions about any individual items that are either being recommended or deferred at this point in time.
Madam Chair, if I may. For the projectors replacement, was this the 87.5 number? Is that for half of them still, or is that it? That's
It's
all?
half.
Okay.
It's half. It's going to be a 2-year cycle, and it's replacing 10-year-old projectors at the high school. They were from when the renovation was done 10 years ago.
These are for the smart boards.
Projectors that, yes, project out of the smart boards. The current iteration of them, they have very expensive replacement bulbs, and the ones we're replacing them with will be much more efficient and less costly for maintenance. But we're going to do 50% of the building next year if approved, and 50% the following year.
Madam Chair, just, is this going like from the two separate, one that's ceiling mounted and with the whiteboard to one all-in-one unit?
It's a unit that projects onto the whiteboard. Now, some classrooms will have monitors, which sort of look like what you have here at the town hall, where they project on there. Others will still have the interactive whiteboards, if they're like math teachers, where they need to have the children go up to the board and have it interact. So we're tailoring it to each teacher, so it'll probably be about a 50-50 split.
And there's a significant difference in the lamp cost?
There are. Luckily, as technology improves, it does get less expensive. Case in point are the Chromebooks. They've come down almost $100 a piece since we first initiated the one-to-one program. And yes, the bulbs are just a real costly replacement cycle, and as they burn out, the quality of the projection doesn't look as good. You see squiggly lines and things. So as we replace them, that improves.
That was going to be my next question. Are the current systems, is the quality have diminished?
Yes, the quality diminishes over time. I was observing in a classroom not too long ago when as the kids were writing on the board, you could see squiggly lines, like the teacher will write and it doesn't look like what she's putting in there, it doesn't project the same way. So yeah, there's definitely a need to make these changes so that the quality, the kids are seeing what they need to see.
So it's not just an end-of-life prediction?
No, they're starting to go, so to speak.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions of the superintendent regarding capital requests? Oh. Okay.
That's all we had scheduled for tonight. If you want to go into what we had scheduled for tomorrow, which is, if you want to finalize the capital budget this evening, or you want to at least discuss anything that we have on the revenue, what we have projected for revenue. Obviously, what the council does is decide what the expenditure budget is. That's what certainly is subject to go to the all-day vote in April. But, you balance that off against the revenues, as you certainly are aware. We're still waiting to see what happens at the state level. We may not have updated numbers for maybe even before we vote in April, but we're using, the best available information that we have today, which we used that same last year, and it changed significantly. Now, some towns decided that they would budget, they would budget less revenue from the state, and what happened was they ended up, having a higher mill rate that they incorporated into their, into their taxes as a result of anticipating the state was going to lower. So in those particular instances, they covered that ahead of time. The decision was made here that, that we would only budget based upon, the best available information we had, and we'd make the adjustment, going forward. We thought we'd be able to make the adjustment using, unassigned fund balance if necessary to get us through the year. Unfortunately, that got coupled with our self-insurance funds, so that didn't really, having two, relatively large items hit us at one time, put us in a position where the council, and certainly based on the somewhat on the recommendation of staff, was to send out the supplemental bill to cover at least the shortfall in the current fiscal year. So, but if you like, we can review the revenues as we see them. There aren't a lot of changes, but certainly can do that. I know that we can do that if you choose tonight, or we can save it for tomorrow.
And we have data processing also.
And yes, and we still have data processing to finish up if you want to finish up that one as well.
Would you like to spend a few minutes on revenue while we're here, or would you rather do this another time?
No, I think we can do revenue.
Okay. Before we get into the revenue for next year, I would like to talk a little bit about where we are right now. And have we received the expected, up to point, now we're into March, so we don't have a lot of time left. Have we received all of the payments that we were expecting from the state in terms of any education grant funding that hasn't come through, or any other grants that we were counting on to be part of this current year's revenue outlook? Did we get everything, or are we still waiting?
A lot of the grants are on a schedule, so we haven't received the full allotment of a lot of them yet. I'm just pulling it up right now. To date, we received, the big one obviously is ECS, and we've received 50% of what we're supposed to get, which is in schedule with how they pay.
The other 50%, I believe, is due April 1st?
It's due, April 1st, or by May 1st at the latest, I believe.
But that, we're anticipating the reduced amount that they, even with the governor's holdback, so so they've only funded us 50% of what the legislature approved plus the holdbacks.
Correct. We budgeted for the LED circuit breaker that got cut. That's 150,000 hit. We knew about that though. That's part of the holdbacks. We have received the municipal stabilization grant, 63,000. PQAC grant, we've received so far what we're entitled to based on the payment structure and our grant amount.
The stabilization grant was, $500,000, correct?
63,000.
Well,
and then there's also the sales tax sharing grant, which we're supposed to get something on, which is $500,000, 522,000.
We haven't received that yet?
No. And that comes late, very late.
Like in June sometime?
If not after June 30th, yeah. So we have to, what I usually have to do is find out if we're actually going to get it.
Yeah.
book the revenue as a receivable, and then we get it in August sometime. The first year we got it.
Then you can account for that, but my concern was when we did the tax bill, the tax bill that we sent out, you know, and according to the numbers we were looking at, we were hoping to be able to make up $200,000, 200, I can't remember that exact number, but you know, when it came down to doing a 3/4 mil increase, there was still a portion of money as we were looking at it, trying to see if we could do some cost savings during the year, or hoping that some revenues would come in a little bit higher. So I'm just wondering now if we're getting close to the point where we can feel a little more comfortable, or we're still...
Well, we're almost 75% of the way through. At the end of March, we'll be 75% of the way through the year. You know, the ECS will, the last 50% will, you know, that's the big number, obviously.
Right.
Yeah, as far as any other line items are, you know, coming in higher than what we budgeted. You know, we got some miscellaneous monies that, you know, that's always the unknown, if you will.
Right.
It's going to come in higher than we budgeted, not by a whole lot, not by 200,000, unless we get something else that comes in unexpectedly. Everything else is pretty much in line with the budget. I mean, we're pretty, I don't want to say good, but we are pretty good in budgeting what we expect to get in. A lot of times, we're right on target. So.
Okay. And
What about on the expenditure
expenditures?
Yeah,
are-
and on the expenditure side, I mean, again, we're, you know, a lot of things are timing, and you know, again, through. Let me just find it. This is through, well, this week, Monday. We spent 61% of the budget so far, just from a, you know.
Oh,
So,
Okay.
again, you know, 9 months of the year, 3/4 of the way through the year, you would expect 75%. It's
Correct.
not always that way at the end of the year.
do some
But-
things are expended further out? in the
Correct,
years?
it's a timing principle,
Okay.
right? The only thing that's really structured is payroll,
Okay,
which is obviously one of our biggest costs. So we're in line. You know, I can sit down and look at, when we do the financial dashboard for,
February?
I guess it'll be for February at next week's meeting, I think. Are we next week already? Yeah. You know, I'll look at it more and
Yep.
try to see where we're at.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it. Okay, Robert, our revenues.
A1,
Yep,
A1, you know, the listing is on A3. You can see that with regards to property taxes and license and permits, we're not anticipating any changes to that. The only change to the current taxes would be the, you know, the mill rate increase. With regards to fines and fees, we see the ability that the motor vehicle delinquent fees that we charged, that was set in motion several years ago, is coming in a little bit higher than what we've had budgeted in the past. So we're recommending, you know, an increase of $4,000 in that area, a decrease of $1,000 in the police fines, an increase of $12,500 in the police fees, and a slight decrease in the impound fees. $1,000 increase in the trash container fees.
Most of those are based on prior years' actual receipts. Or the police fees that's primarily special duty, 15% administrative charge. So as they do more special duty, we get more money, and it's been running a little bit higher, so I figured bump it up a little bit.
okay.
Right, and that pays for things like the use of the car and
Correct,
for the
yes.
benefits
Yeah.
of the police department,
Yeah,
you know,
correct,
police
yeah.
officers and whatnot. On A4, use of money, Rob is estimating a $10,000 increase based upon, you know, interest rates as they stand right now, as well as the fact that we have less money available for investment. As far as the state revenues are concerned, you know, those are based upon the legislature's, you know, second year budget amounts. Other revenues, no change, and slight change in the interfund transfers in from the water pollution control facility. And you'll see at the bottom the interfund transfer in from debt management of $300,000 that we've talked about several times. So these revenues would balance the increased expenditures as it stands right now. Again, as things change between now and when you set the mill rate, certainly adjustments will be made to this. You know, hopefully it goes more than in an upward direction rather than a downward direction. Hopefully it will stay the same. At the very least.
So the largest driver of some of these revenue decreases is education cost sharing grant.
Well, that's part of it. Part of it is 150,000 of it is coming from the elderly circuit breaker.
Right.
So 46,000 is coming from the Pequot grant.
And the sales tax sharing, we're not expecting that.
Well, what's happened is they changed the name. They changed it from the sales tax sharing to the grants for municipal projects. So the 522 becomes the 541. They changed the names
okay.
to protect the innocent,
Okay.
I guess, or
All right.
something. The LoSup grant they're cutting in half for next year, or I guess a third. So that's 82,000. So it's about half and half between education. This 300 and some odd thousand decrease from what we have currently budgeted, and the remaining 300,000 from those other items. We are losing, you know, as it stands right now, we may be losing Town Aid Road for next year as well, which is off budgeted. We do have some money in the Town Aid Road account, but you know that will cover us. But you know, at some point in time, if that trend continues, then you know we're gonna have to make it up somewhere else. That's you know, those dollars pay for a lot of our winter materials and whatnot that we use, and some other road, you know, some other miscellaneous road stuff that we may do. But that 610, you'll notice is the number that we're using for intergovernmental. You know, we use that in our summary.
Right.
You know, that's driving, I think, $45 of the of the typical taxpayer, you know, budget, you know, tax increase for next year.
Does anybody have any questions about the revenue?
Again, you don't approve the revenue at this time, it just gives you, you know, a feel for, you know, what, balance off against the expenditures that you're talking about,
Right.
considering approving.
Too much red in there, Robert.
Well, what I've done on some of the, you know, what happens, for example, is you have the special ed, you know, special ed grant going down and the educational cost sharing going up. If we just combine those two, there'd still be some red, but it wouldn't look so large. You know, we're going down 2.4 and going up 2.1.
That's the problem.
So 340.
So, yes, there's too much red on, well, and you can see that the red is mostly on the intergovernmental side, not on the other, not really on the other, you know, the things we can control, or the things that are being done locally.
Sure.
Minor changes. And even the use of money is, a lot of that is impacted by what happens in the intergovernmental as well. Because if we didn't have the decrease of $1.9 million in the, you know, in state aid for the current fiscal year, we might have been able to use some of that unassigned fund balance to backfill on the health insurance.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
It's a town manager, if Robert could elaborate a little bit on page A3 on the prior taxes and on the suspense. And it's probably something I'm just missing. But I noticed we budgeted for next year the same as was budgeted this year, but yet both during the current year and also during the 2017, we actually collected more. Up on the top under prior taxes.
Well, prior taxes. You know, as we as we collect more on prior taxes, there's less to collect as we,
Yeah,
you know,
okay,
so.
yeah.
So, you know, we go from, you know, 665 to 650. We haven't reached 650 yet. We expect we will. We're trying to be conservative on those.
Is that, I was going to ask, is it just being cautious in terms of not over budgeting?
You know,
Yeah.
we had that, you know, one of the things that we were planning at some point in time was to collect on the, you know, on the White Oak property, which is a significant amount of dollars. You know, and now we're gonna take ownership of the property, which is the goal, so we're not gonna get that money in hand, but you know, next year, but at some point in time, we will get that back, and hopefully that will, if we're able to move forward, that, you know, that will backfill as a revenue somewhere down the line, either the year after next or the year after that.
But there is a chance, being optimistic, that we might collect more than the 525,000.
That's
Correct.
yes.
Then on the suspense, and those are the items that where they were not paid for 50 years, were taken off the grand list.
Yes.
And in that case, looks like we budgeted the 25,000 for the last 2 years, and actually, in that case, it looks like we're probably under where we would normally be if we were going to reach that goal for those properties. Okay, so that kind of balances out. Okay, but thank you for that elaboration.
Sure.
I was wondering why, if it was just being cautious and conservative, if there was any other reason, so thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding the revenue? Okay,
Do we want to go back to data processing?
sure. That's on C35.
Yes. You know, based upon, you know, the original assumption that, that we were going to reduce monies going to the Board of Education for the IT operation. And if we were going to add that into at least the data processing, so it's in one place instead of being in 3 or 4 different places, because we've already accounted for it as a reduction in those other budgets already, in the police department, some in senior center, and some in recreation, and some in water pollution control. Do you recall how much is in water pollution control? Because
It was a very small amount. I think it needed like less than $1,000. More work is done from an IT standpoint with the senior center and the library at this point than with water pollution control. So I was trying to get the correct dollar amount over to the Board of Ed, so I nickel and dime sewer for about $1,000.
well, it would be my recommendation that you add $49,000 to the 195. So it'd be 244, 299. That would be an increase of 31,963 from the current year's budget, which would be an increase, of at least a percentage increase of,
15.05.
yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Again, Robert, where are you getting that amount of 49,000? Because right now I see the 17,000 here. But
Well, what you're seeing is when you go into other contractual, if you go into other contractual, you can see where that's minus 25.
right,
That was anticipating that we wouldn't have to pay the Board of Education $25,000. Because we had the SRO, you know, that was gonna be the trade-off, was that we would have the expenditure in the police budget.
which it is.
Right. And that we wouldn't pay the Board of Education for the IT services that we're getting from them. Okay, but what that means is they, in their budget that they approved, because they were not in favor of the SRO at the time, their budget includes having that revenue come in.
As if there was no change to the current year budget.
Right. So, there's 2 things, now that the SRO has been at least favored by the council, we have to do one of 2 things. One is, we have to either ask the Board of Education, you know, the Board of Education is gonna have to find the $49,000 that we give them if we don't give it to them. And they've said that, their budget is you know, they don't have the ability to reduce their budget. If they have to reduce their budget if they're forced to reduce their budget because they're being handed the SRO, they really don't have the, you know, that will impact their educational plan. And you've already, you know, approved their budget at a certain level, a certain expenditure level, so, would seem to be satisfactory. They would have to lower their budget in order, or actually they would have to increase their budget in order to, if we didn't give them the revenue.
Or find the money somewhere else,
Well,
which they can do. They can transfer money around, right?
well, they can transfer money around, but they would have to make a plan for how are they gonna reduce their budget by $49,000? They're not transferring money around, they're reducing their budget by $49,000. They're not transferring anything at that point in time. So, there's one or two things you can do. You can pay them the $49,000, which makes them whole based upon the budget that's in place. Or reduce, or pay them, but that means we have to increase our expenditures because we've reduced our expenditures by $49,000 in anticipation that we wouldn't be giving that to them. So this budget is based upon not giving them the $49,000 as it stands right now. But now that you've approved the SRO, if they have to increase their budget, that also increases what we call the MBR. If they increase their budget by $50,000, $49,000, that's their base for next year. Which means that, based upon current law, it's very difficult to bring them down below the base. There are some exceptions to that. But they're not significant. So the more you increase the Board of Education's budget, the more you can't decrease it going forward. So that's why, if you have a strategy, if the money's gonna come from the same place, you either increase the Board of Education's budget, or the Board of Education has to find $49,000 in the budget that they've already approved. I'm not sure if the council wants to do that. I mean,
They could give it to us at the end of the year too, and then it goes back into fund balance and it all moves back.
But we still have to budget for it.
We still do, yeah, at this point,
I
yeah.
understand.
Robert, is your goal to take the 49,000, add it back to data processing, and then in June of 19, you'll fix it with some fourth quarter transfers and budget it right for 20?
No, I'm recommending that you increase the budget right now by $49,000.
No, that's what I'm saying. We're going to increase data processing, but it was a combination of smaller numbers combined, correct?
Well, 25 in this budget.
Right.
15 in this,
16 in the police budget.
in the police budget. and-
Right, that's what I'm saying. So you're gonna add it all back here.
Yes, and keep it in there going forward.
Oh, okay.
Just keep it in there so so it isn't filtered through all the budget.
Yeah,
So it's very clearly, this is what we're paying for IT.
But you're anticipating there's gonna be excess in
Our
here,
bottom line's going up 49.
and you're not.
No, I'm not anticipating there's gonna be excess in here, no.
Okay. Oh, because you were paying for the data processing that was spread out, so we're putting it all back together in this, okay, all right.
We've already subtracted it out of the other departments.
I'm with you now, okay, all right.
That 49 is the salary of the IT person that is employed by the Board of Ed, that is theoretically the town's IT share
Gotcha,
person.
okay.
However you
I'm
want
good.
it.
Thank you.
There's times when we have 2 IT people helping us out from the Board of Education. There's times when, it's on an as-needed basis. We estimate that our needs are about 1 full-time person a year. And I think that kind of works out, but at times we have 2 people working for us at one time, one in the police and one in the municipal center, or recreation or senior center. At other times, they're all working in the schools.
The collaboration's been great. They've been just, you've met Kevin and some of his staff and various, they've increased the technology in the town site a lot since this consolidation has occurred.
And you can see that in terms of their capital budget when they're improving that network. That actually includes, us, including our servers as well. So they're looking at the entire piece in terms of their telephone upgrade as well. They included us with that as well. They're doing a lot of that work, so it is working out very well.
But because they're educationally based and as a Board of Education, they're able to get grants that we as a town cannot get. So some of the equipment they get, i.e. what's in the capital and the E-rate, we couldn't, if we were to go out and try and do this, it would be $22,500 higher at a minimum. But they're doing it, we get the benefit of it as well. the equipment they're purchasing is at, Board of Ed rates, costs, whatever, they're able to get different grants and costs than we are. So the town is making out very, very well having this consolidation, to the tune of $49,000 in general government budget.
Could we get a corrected sheet? Could we have this sheet corrected to have,
How to properly reflect it.
so,
And
then we know what the bottom line is too, how it's gonna affect
once you
everything
guys vote,
else?
once you vote on everything, you'll have,
No, before
what
we
sheet are
vote on
you
it.
referring to?
By tomorrow.
I have it right here in front of me, if you vote yes.
C-36, is that the sheet you need then?
You want, what you
Yeah,
want?
see, 36, I want-
Duplicate that,
Right.
yeah, with the proper numbers in it.
Oh,
Yeah, and how it's gonna
Can I
affect
just
everything
say
else.
something? Right now, it has the proper numbers. Until we approve it,
Right,
then the
so it's-
numbers
yeah.
change. So
Right.
I'm not sure I'm following what you're looking for.
Well, if you go to the first page, like if you go to,
I mean, I just crossed out 195, 200, and I wrote in 244, 299.
Right.
That's what I did.
So in the column,
But
this
you
is
would
council
like a
approved.
piece of paper that says 220, or 244, 299 instead of
And it should
195.
also not say 25,470,
All
it
these
should be
credits.
49,000 in there, right?
Right,
You're
it
gonna pull all
says
that in that
49,
one
it
spot.
says 25 right now, but he's saying 49. Yeah, I want this corrected,
No.
Well,
it's not wrong, though.
and then how is it gonna affect everything else? if we have
You're
49?
confusing, I think you're confusing different things. The negative 25,470
would now become positive 19.
Yeah. So that's what it
Because we're already
should
paying 25,
would be,
470.
it would, that number, when you put the numbers in the council approved column, the number you're looking at in the column that's changed is the difference what was budgeted this year of 46,350 and what Robert, as a town manager, recommended of 20,880. That's the negative, that's the difference in the line items. Now, when you add 49,000 back to the 20,880 in a column labeled council approved, that line item alone would be 69,880.
Right,
So that negative 25,470 would be a positive 23,530. It would be in black.
and the increase would be what,
And
percentage?
the bottom, for that line item alone,
Yeah,
would be 50.77%. And it would be in black and not red. And like Robert said, the bottom line of the entire department would be 244,299.
right.
An increase of 31,963 or 15.05%.
And if you go to the tab under transmittal letter, which is, page I guess that's an I. The summary page, you see what town government operation is proposed to go up by $199,520, which is at 1.27%. That separates out the town health insurance and the BOA health insurance, which is down below, but that 199,520, I added $49,000 to that. That would make that somewhere around 250. I don't have the exact number, but it's, pretty much 250. And the percentage increase would be 1.58. Now, we certainly can update these numbers and have that for you tomorrow, so that's not a problem. If you want to see all, if you don't want to approve it tonight, I'm just telling you that, but that's kind of what it looks like.
Okay.
What we've done in the past is I've actually sent you all this file that I'm working on right here. You can certainly have it if you want, the whole file, which is every single department, every single summary, it's your call.
And if you look at the overall budget of $60,056, that would increase by obviously $49,000. And instead of the increase being 2.62%, it would be 2.7%. But basically represents 0.08% increase at $49,000. So the 2.62 becomes 2.7. Now, how it impacts the mill rate, it's probably, I don't know, 45 $49,000 is, probably increases that
Yeah, I think
33.84 to 33.
We were saying 33.84, it would be 33.89 mill rate, so,
We can run all those numbers so you can see it tomorrow if that's
Yeah,
that's
right.
not a problem.
Thank you.
That would be good, I think, because there's been a lot of,
That makes sense.
moving.
do you want
I
hard
would
copies,
appreciate
you want me
that.
to send you the file, you want to look at it, I can send you PDFs of certain pages, every page, I can email you the entire file, what would you like?
I'd like the Excel file.
Okay,
That would work for me.
All right.
That's fine.
Yeah,
And I can pull out what I
sure,
got.
sure.
But we'll update the data processing page,
And
and
this
we'll
sheet.
update the summary sheet.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank
And
you.
we'll give you a hard copy of that. We'll give it to you.
So we'll just replace them.
Yeah,
Okay.
But it's with the understanding we actually haven't approved that, those changes.
Yeah,
right,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
right, you can still change it.
Yeah,
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 exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Rob.
yeah. But because it's kind of a little more complex, it would be helpful to see it before we actually approve.
Sure.
Okay. I think that's all we have, unless you have any questions or any other information you want for us this evening.
What is the plan for tomorrow night?
I guess the plan for tomorrow night, unless you want to complete the capital budget this evening, would be to complete the capital budget and to complete the overall general government budget.
For tomorrow?
Well,
I'm not gonna be here tomorrow, so I would prefer if we can deal with capital tonight.
Well, can I make a suggestion? I really don't want to vote on capital tonight. I have a couple things that came up as we talked about this.
I agree.
What I would suggest is we now not meet tomorrow and meet next Wednesday to finalize everything.
and that's fine.
If that way, I'm sure that's plenty enough time for me to get what I need.
Next
and-
Wednesday.
Because right now, as it stands, we still have data processing we need to approve.
Or you can even do it Monday night if you want to during a
Oh,
regular
that's
council
true.
meeting. We don't have much on the
Regular
agenda,
meeting.
but if you want to do it separately, we did have that as a work session for Wednesday, March 21st.
That would be my suggestion, is that we come back and plan on trying to finalize.
On the
budget.
21st?
If that works for everybody.
Or do
We
you want to do
cancel
it
tomorrow
Monday
night
night
and do the 21st.
after our council meeting? Oh, you're not going to be here? What was the thing?
I won't be here tomorrow.
No, Monday, she's asking
here
about
Monday?
Monday
I'll be
after
here,
council
I'll be here
meeting.
all next week.
Okay. I'm fine with that, too. I'm fine with Monday.
There-
I would
Or
prefer to
Wednesday.
do it Wednesday. I don't think we should do this during a regular council meeting, but that's just my
Wednesday's good with me.
personal opinion.
Is everybody okay with the 21st?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we'll do it then.
6:30?
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.